Ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of the Louis Sports Network. Hope everybody is having a wonderful Saturday afternoon, early Saturday afternoon. Before we get started, make sure you smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure your post notifications are turned on, make sure you're sharing on your social media platforms. Truly appreciate it. Man, peace and blessings to everybody, man. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Saturday, man. All right, continue to like, share, subscribe to the channel. Definitely appreciate you guys, man, because I always say without y'all there is no me. So let's get on to the video. Now, this video is about this idea that Jordan has never went up against any competition. According to LeBron fans, they've only said that all he's done is he's gone up against 4 All-Stars at one time, which is true to an extent. But to make it seem like that Michael Jordan has never gone on up against, you know, a multitude of All-Stars in his own right is downright ridiculous, because let's take a look. Take a look at the 1986 Boston Celtics that featured players such as Dennis Johnson, who's one of the more underrated players in NBA history. You look at, obviously, Larry Bird, who was the MVP that year. Let's look at Robert Parrish, who made the All-Star team in '86. How about let's look at Kevin McHale, who also made the All-Star team in '86. And, oh, by the way, the Boston Celtics happened to win the most games out of any team that year. They had the league best record at 67-15. Oh, and how about the fact that they set a then NBA record 40 wins at home? They were 40-1 at the Boston Garden. Let's also talk about the fact that they finished that postseason with a 15-3 record, and they went on to sweep Jordan and the Bulls in the '86 playoffs. And this is a Michael Jordan who came off a broken foot that made him miss 64 games in the season. And you know what the Bulls record was without Michael Jordan in those 64 games? They were 22 games under 500, ladies and gentlemen, at 21-43. But Dennis Johnson was an All-Star in '85. So was Robert Parrish, and so was Larry Bird. Kevin McHale didn't make the team in '85, but he made it the next year. Larry Bird made it in '86. Robert Parrish made it in '86. And what does that mean? That's basically telling you that Jordan went up against, well, he would have went up against 3 All-Stars in '85 if he would have went up against the Boston Celtics. He didn't, though, because he went up against the Milwaukee Bucks, one of the more underrated teams in NBA history that never won an NBA championship with the squad they had that year. 59-win team. And then you also have to consider the fact that in '87, when Jordan went up against him again, Larry Bird and Robert Parrish made an All-Star team. Now, Dennis Johnson, I don't think made it, but my point is, you got to understand that this is what I'm saying. It's telling you that that's how great the Boston Celtics were as a basketball team. Let me fast forward a little bit to 1996, because that's another team in the Seattle Supersonics, arguably the most underrated team to never win an NBA championship, with the fact that if you win 64 games in a season, you usually would have the best record in the NBA in most years. But guess what? The Bulls were just that much better. They had 72 wins that year. That's all it was. And let's also talk about the fact that they won 39-2 at home. They won 33 road games, which at the time was the most in NBA history. Then broken by the 73-9 Warriors when they set the record for 34 wins. But Shawn Kemp was an All-Star that year. Gary Payton was an All-Star that year and won Defensive Player of the Year. And Def Leppard Shrimp was not an All-Star that year, but Def Leppard Shrimp was an All-Star the previous year. He's a 3-time All-Star for his career. His All-Star appearances were in '93, '95, and '97. So that goes to show you that Def Leppard Shrimp, and he's a former 6th Man of the Year. So Def Leppard Shrimp is no freaking bum by any means. So I don't understand. So yeah, I mean, because people want to count Andre, they said, oh yeah, you know, former All-Star Andre Iguodala and stuff like that. But that also goes to show you that Jordan had his fair share of competition. And Def Leppard Shrimp is one of the more underrated players when it comes to skill. Really, really, really talented European player who would thrive in today's game. So this is why I'm going to tell you that, yeah, Jordan's gone up against All-Star talent too. So to say that he hasn't is just really ridiculous, because he did go up against some competition. So that's why I said with LeBron fans, it's like you have to understand the quality of players that made these All-Star teams, because I am on record as saying that I think you know, I'm sorry, I'm just getting distracted right here trying to make sure that but you know, it's just going to show you that – I'm sorry, guys. I'm just looking right now, just a little distracted. But anyway, just trying to clear this lane. Anyway, though, getting back to what I was saying, but that's why it's going to show you that, yeah, he played some competition. And nobody's saying that LeBron didn't play competition, because the 2017 Warriors were definitely competition. You got Kevin Durant, you got Steph Curry, you got Draymond Green, and you got Klay Thompson. Yeah, definitely is competition. But to sit here and say that Jordan didn't face competition is, come on, man. That's going apples to oranges. I mean, if you start to compare players that they played against, and then when you go skill for skill. I mean, Andre Iguodala is a former All-Star, but whatchamacallit, I've heard LeBron fans go, oh yeah, well, Iggy, he went up against 5 All-Stars. Like, they've even counted him. So I'm like, if you got to count him, then that's like, yo, you got to count Dennis Johnson, because he was an All-Star in 85. He just didn't make it the next year in 86. And then you also have to count Def Left Shrimp. He made it the previous year. And in 95, if people remember, Jordan was out of the game for most of the season, obviously due to baseball, came back due to the strike, and played 17 games. The Sonics didn't make the finals that year. They got eliminated in the first round to the Lakers, which is probably one of the more disappointing things about the Sonics, is that they were one of the best teams in winning a lot of regular season games, but couldn't win when it counted up until 96. Then you also have their 93 team is actually underrated, with the amount of wins that they had, but they just fell short of an NBA Finals. But getting back to the point, to say that Michael Jordan ain't gone up against like multiple All-Stars in his own right is downright ridiculous. Because Shawn Kemp, he should be in the Hall of Fame, but he's not. But that's not to say that he was not a bum, because he was the Blake Griffin of his time. And he was a 6-time All-Star, which I think Blake Griffin has the same amount of All-Star appearances as Shawn Kemp. And then you talk about Def Left Shrimp, like I said, underrated 6-man, 3-time All-Star. The guy can ball. So it's like you have to really watch tape of these guys, and it's just like, oh, Michael Jordan went up against slow, unathletic white guys, but they were skilled. And there's a lot of great players that we don't even really talk about when it comes to all-time really good players in the 80s and 90s. A lot of guys that don't get mentioned, and it's because they kind of tend to get overshadowed by some of the players that played in that time. But that's not to go to say that there was not talent, because there was. But yeah, you look at 96 and you look at 86 as 2 prime examples of the type of players that Jordan went up against. And remember, and I know he had Pippen. Pippen was in his prime at that point. We can look at numbers and all that. But what I'm trying to basically tell you is you're talking about a second-year young Jordan who missed most of the season that year. And like I said, he went up against competition. And it's like, you can technically say he went up against 4 All-Stars. And the crazy part about was I think in 1988, Danny Ainge, who was one of the really good role players on that team, did y'all know that he was an All-Star in 88? So it's like the Celtics constantly had multiple All-Stars in that run, with Larry Bird and that crew with Boston. I mean, so it just lets you know how stacked that 86 team was, man. It's regarded as one of the greatest teams of all time. It wasn't the NBA Finals, I get that, but that's not to say that Jordan didn't play competition, man. He played competition all the way to the finals. And Seattle was competition. I don't want to hear nothing. That was a really good loaded Sonics team. Really, really good team. Like I said, one of the best teams to never win a championship. That's how good that Sonics team was. So I don't want to hear nothing. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there's your boy Louis with another one on another drive-through episode right here on the channel. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and do you guys want me to do more of these, as I mentioned? So let me know what you guys think, man. Bless up, live, laugh, love. Thank you guys for watching. Enjoy your Saturday.